Hi and welcome to another episode of Robert's Boat Project. Today we are testing this nice cheap electric outboard engine. I found it on AliExpress for around 150 euros. 150 euros for the shipment, so 300 euros for this electric outboard engine. It's rated 1000 watt, 1 kilowatt at 48 volts, and we will give this engine a try. For the test we use our trusted dinghy. We will load it with 2 adults and 2 kids, and we will see how this electric engine performs. As a power source I use a 48 volt battery pack. I built it by myself. It contains just 3 batteries, each cell 14.8 volt, 10,000 milliampere hours. 3 times give us 48 volt. We also have a battery management system which basically controls that the batteries are not getting under voltage. And I have a little bit more here. I've got a plug for 12 volt devices and a little bit of electronics which converts the 48 volts to 12 volts. And I've got a nice measurement device, so I know how much power I draw and how much should be left in the batteries. So that's basically the setup. So this setup will hold around 500 watt hours of energy. It should be sufficient to drive the engine on full speed for half an hour. And we should be able to travel between 1.5 and 2 miles with this thing. So there's another battery setup I will try today. I've got some batteries from my power tools, each battery rated 18 volts and 5 amp hours. So in total 3 batteries will give me around 60 volts, which is a little bit high for this motor, but it still will work with this. And yeah, so it will also be possible to run an engine with batteries you already have. There's only one thing with this setup. You will get around 60 volts here on the connector. So make sure you will not touch it anyway. It's safe to work for up to 45 volts, this is okay. 60 volt is a little bit high, and even 60 volts from out of the batteries will hurt you if you touch it. So be aware what you're doing when you build a setup like this.
Yet weather is nice, sunny, not so cold, not so hot, just a mild, very mild wind. It's almost perfect. Oh, I don't know how to steer, sorry.
Okay, so we went around 2.5 miles now. We used 2/3 of our 500 watt hour battery. We're drawing currently 300 watts and doing 2.7 knots, so it feels comfortable with this engine and this boat.
Going from here. No. Go there.
Wow, look, we can jump. Aber das Wasser ist so kalt.
Okay. Ich sitze da.
We reached a voltage of 42 volts, so the controller in the engine just shut down. So we have to switch to our backup battery.
But it shouldn't be touched.
Yeah, we don't touch it. So now we have 60 volts. Wow! It's fun. Okay, with 60 volts it's really fun. Doing 3.5 knots. It really goes fast. Yeah. Okay, so how did this engine perform? Basically it did remarkable well. It has a lot of power, especially if you run it with 60 volts, and it really goes quite fast. I'm really impressed. For the price, it's a very good part. But there are some things I don't like that much. Since they just converted a normal petrol engine to electric, they used the same case, the same housing which they used for a petrol engine. It means there are a lot of open areas, which is good for ventilation on a petrol engine, but not that good on an electrical engine, because none of these electrical parts beneath the housing are really protected from spray water. Especially if you run this engine in a saltwater environment. I just tested it on fresh water, it's not a big deal. On salt water, I will give it a try as soon as the situation permits. The next thing I don't like that much is this connector here. They used a connector wire which is used on a household device, so it's not waterproof. It's rated for 10 amps at 250 volts. If you give full throttle, you have at least 20 amps running through this connector. It didn't get hot during my trials, but it's not rated for the current which we are using, so I will change it to a different style of connector, even a waterproof, later on. Another issue may be this handle here which you use for the throttle. It's also not waterproof, and if you submerge it accidentally into salt water, I think the whole engine may fail at once. One more thing, we have a voltmeter here on top of the engine. I don't know if it's really waterproof. If you leave the engine out on your boat and it started to rain, I'm sure it will fail as well, so you always have to cover this engine. Now let's have a look inside. On the inside you just see the electric motor, 1000 watt. We've got the motor controller and a little switchboard. Yeah, to the motor controller, that's another issue. This controller is designed to work with a lead acid battery. It means it cuts off the engine once the battery reaches a voltage of 42 volt. I run this engine with lithium batteries, So the lithium batteries will reach the 42 volts long before they are really empty, which means you can only get around 80% of the capacity from your batteries. Then the controller switches off. So not the best thing when you run this with the 48 volt lithium battery setup. When you run this engine with the 60 volts dual battery setup, it's not an issue because the dual batteries will switch off when they are depleted, when they are empty. So they switch off before the motor controller switch off the motor. But I think you have to consider. So that's it for this week. I hope you've got some useful information in this video. If you have any question about this engine, just write it in the comments below. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up and see you next time. Until then, Servus.